farming in the traditional sense is the quickest way to ensure you'll never get enough listings. And look, I know you might be saying to yourself, well, I've done some farming. I've gotten a few listings here and there from it. That's fine and great, but you will never, ever get the volume that you should from the marketing dollars that you spend. You see, the way that agents start farming, and it may be the way that you've done it yourself, is on bad advice from their broker. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame brokers for this. Most brokers that I've met, at least, are not really great marketers, and they really don't know any better when they are guiding you on how to begin your marketing campaign. Look, this is how the career of a typical agent starts, right? You get into the business and they tell you to do all the mind-numbing things, do the door knocking, do the cold calling, hold open houses for other agents who really know better. And the turnover rate is just phenomenal in this business. It's very, very dangerous, right? It's almost worse than working at a restaurant. Some 80%, it's a pretty consistent number, some 80% of agents fail out of the business in year one. And then they say by year 2 or 3, 80% of the remaining 20, well, they're out too. And this is how it works. Agents come in, the ones that make it through, doing all the mind-numbing, begging sellers, chasing them down stuff, eventually they'll come to the broker and they'll say, you know, I'm tired of sitting in open houses for other agents. I'd really like to have some other dummy sitting in an open house for me so I can have my weekends free to spend with my family and be home in the evening to actually have dinner with those that I love, right? And so the broker says to them, pick a farm. And this is where the downfall starts. You're actually dead in the water here before you ever start swimming. And this is why. Most agents choose farms on pure emotion. They purely guess. They'll say, those are the prettiest homes in my marketplace. That should be my farm. Or, hey, there's a neighborhood I might want to move into one day. That should be my farm. And here's the big one. I live in this neighborhood, so this naturally should be my farm. And guess what? You're wrong. Right? What happens is you're guessing and you end up blowing all of this hard-earned money that you saved up after doing all the torturous, mind-numbing stuff. And you'll blow it all in one shot because you're marketing to largely disinterested people. Could you guess right? Yes. Is it likely you'd guess right on these people? Highly, highly, highly unlikely. So we've got a formulaic approach to fixing this. But if you want to keep running in the negative on your marketing, you want to keep not getting what you should have out of it, go ahead. Keep guessing, keep doing it this way. Or you could take our approach to this. This is what I call, look, and before I get into it, I'm going to tell you, it's real life what I tell you here. When I got into real estate, look, I was an expert marketer already. I've been studying marketing way before I ever got into real estate. And I just decided when I got into this, I was going to be coachable. I was going to listen to my broker. So I did that. I went and I said, okay, I'll pick this farm. And I marketed it for months and months and months, letters, postcards. And the dropping point really for me was Halloween. I went out and I literally got a truck full of these tiny little pumpkins. And I thought it was really cute to walk around the neighborhood, put a little pumpkin on everybody's door, cut a little slit in the stem, and I stuck my card in there. You know what the result was? 0 calls. In fact, I never got any calls from that neighborhood at all. And I finally just said, forget it, not doing this crap anymore. And I started doing things the way that I knew how to do it. Look, marketing rule 101. Know your audience. If you guess, you don't know anything. You don't know who they are, what they want. You don't know what to say to them. You just don't. Right? So for me, I have to figure out who it is I need to be marketing to. And this is the process you should take. I call it building a SAM. It's a strategic area market. It's basically a farm on steroids built on data. So it's a very formulaic approach. And so the approach is this. We're going to look at 3 data points. And it's very, very simple. Anybody can do this. We're going to look at turnover rate. We're going to look at competitive saturation. And we're going to look at proximity to each other. And so we'll start with turnover rate. So the key in turnover rate is knowing what's good, what's bad, where your baseline is, what you should accept, and what you should flatly turn down. So the way we do this is we start off by looking at, I call it your WAM, your wide area market. That's the widest area that you could possibly work. And I'm just going to give you a really simple example of this. I live in Cherokee County, Georgia. So let's just say for simplicity's sake that I would only work, my widest area I could work would just be Cherokee County alone. So I'm going to use the average turnover rate in Cherokee County as the baseline because, right, I want to know what's the average, so I never market to people below average. So what I'll do is I will look at annualized turnover rate and I will go back 2 years and I'll look at them independently. So the way you do turnover rate, by the way, is you look at the number of sales over a given period of time. We're going to do it 12 months at a time, and we divide it by the number of households. You can use your MLS. It'll have all the tools that you need to figure this out. You run a really quick search on number of sales, period, over that given period of time, and then you just divide it by the number of homes. That's your turnover rate. So I go back 2 years. Now, let's just say for Cherokee County, in my example, 1 year turnover at 5%. And the previous year turned over at 6%. Okay, that's consistency. This is why I do 2 years, because I want consistency in my data. So I average them together, I'm going to get a 5.5% average. Perfectly fine. Well, let's say now I looked back on another example. I looked back and it was 5% 1 year and 10% the next year. Well, that tells me one of these is an anomaly. It means I've got to look at more data. So I'm going to go back another 2 years. And let's say that I discover on those 2 years, the turnover rate was a 5% and a 6%. Well, I'm going to go, okay, the 10% is the anomaly. I'm going to eliminate it. I'm going to take these 3 years, average them together, and get whatever it is, 5.5%, 6%. Let's just say, for argument's sake here, just to make this very simple, that our average turned out to be 5% in Cherokee County. That's my baseline. That tells me I never want to market to anybody who's below average. It doesn't make any sense, right? Why spend money? Why spend effort on people who are less likely to move? Doesn't make any sense. You'll go broke. You'll kill your returns. So then what I'll do is I will figure where I work from. I'll say whether I'm working from my home office or whether I work from the office. You have to decide for you what's the place you primarily work at. I'm a visual guy, so I will generally download a map from the internet that's got subdivisions on it. And I'll start looking at turnover rates of these neighborhoods, working outwards from my office, applying the same formula. Number of sales in 12 months divided by the number of homes. And I'll grab 2 Sharpies. I've usually got a pink one and a blue one. And as I'm determining the turnover rates on the map, anything that's at 5% or above, maybe 5, 6, even potentially 7%, I'll highlight it pink. Those are my good enough. Those work for me. And I'll just keep highlighting things on the map. Now, if I see 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s, which I undoubtedly will find in here, I'm going to take a blue highlighter and I'm going to highlight those 2. Doesn't mean anything other than these are the best neighborhoods. These are my bonuses. If I can find a cluster of those, even better. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start mapping these out. And I'm going to look for that cluster to appear on my map. If you want to get the whole formula for how I do it, just go to comelistmebook.com and just get your copy of the Come List Me book, and I explain it all in detail for you. Then I'm going to take the second step. Once I've got that group of potential neighborhoods, I'm going to go through each one of them, and I'm going to look and make sure it's not totally dominated by another real estate agent. And so the number that I typically use when I'm helping agents is 30%. If somebody's got 30% domination, they're probably well known, they're probably well established. It's not going to be super easy to beat them at first. If it's me going in, it doesn't bother me. I've been doing this long enough, I can go in, I can dominate any neighborhood. But I'd advise you, look at the 30%. Now, you also have to have enough data, right? It can't be there were 3 sales and one went to individual agents. That's not enough data. But if I've got 20 sales and I've got 8, 9, 10 of those are by another agent, that's dominated. And I'll skip it at first. So then what I want to do is I want to look and I want to make sure the distance in these neighborhoods is tight enough to where I can be seen readily. And if you just think about this, this is what clustering is all about. It's creating what I call the shark in a puddle effect. You see, most agents, they go way too wide. They might pick a farm here and a farm there and a farm there, and they get no residual effect off of this. They become this minnow in the ocean that nobody sees. There's thousands of agents out there. But if we cluster and we start getting listings in a smaller area that's high probability, where we're spending less dollars to get more return, get more listings, and those listings start popping up, that's how you create the shark in a puddle effect, and you become that guy or girl, that agent that nobody can ignore even if they wanted to. And I want you to always remember this. Listings breed listings. So the more listings you can get in the small, high probability area, the more you're going to get naturally. They're going to get a lot cheaper. They're going to get way easier to get. And also, you can always count on the laziness of humans. People don't want to think. Nobody wants to interview 5 or 10 listing agents and listen to the same worn out presentation, everybody saying how great they are. Nobody wants to go through that. It's a pretty miserable week. If my wife did that, I'd probably go stay down at the Ritz for a week and then come back when she's done and let her pick, right? I'm serious. It's miserable. Nobody wants to do that. People don't want to think. That's why referrals work so well, right? When somebody says, hey, this is a great agent, it's a shoe-in for you. It works the same way in your Sam area. Bob and Susie here, they're going to go, you know what? Hey, Jim and Linda, oh, they picked Mike, and well, so did Dan and Susie. So he must be the guy. They've done the thinking for us. He's the one. Let's call him up and let's hire him. You can get come list me calls just by virtue of creating that authority and that trust in the marketplace, which simply is great marketing in a really nice clustered area of high turnover, high probability people. And so the way the clustering works so well is it not only creates that visibility, but it does this one key and this one necessary thing for you naturally in your marketing. It helps to minimize the downside and maximize the upside. So it drives the cost way down and it gets the return as high as possible, the most commissions for you at the back end as possible. And the way that it does it, if you think about it, we're working in a clustered area. We're only spending money on those sellers who are most likely to give us the most money back for every dollar that we invest in them. However, within that cluster, there's undoubtedly going to be people living there in subdivisions or neighborhoods, whatever you call it in your marketplace, that just didn't fit our marketing formula for one reason or another. So we're not spending any money on them, but you're still going to be picking them up as listings effectively for free because your authority, your trust, it still bleeds over to them. You're still that agent that everybody does business with in this area. And so we're effectively mixing in zero cost of acquisition for clients in the most fertile area around. You can almost not go wrong with this. I will tell you that in my programs, I personally have never spoken to an agent that has come to me that was doing some sort of farming that didn't do one or two of these things when they've applied our formula. Either they immediately switched their farm over and started getting greater results, or they started to bleed some of their budget from their farm into the new area until they saw it working and then eventually moved everything over. So if you're an established agent and you're farming, you can keep farming those same neighborhoods the way you've been doing it, guessing and getting less results than you really should from your marketing. Or if you're a brand new agent, well, you could follow the broker's advice. You could just go pick the pretty homes. You could farm the neighborhood you live in. And you're going to find out very quickly that your bank account really isn't going to withstand that for very long. Or you could literally just spend a few days sitting down at your desk on your MLS, on your tax records, on some of the other resources, and figuring out who those high probability sellers are. Find them in close proximity to each other and just make sure they're not totally dominated by other agents. And you'll automatically be set up to make a whole heck of a lot more money. And frankly, it's the first step in dominating your marketplace. Now, look, if you want to figure out how to get those sellers to pick up the phone and call you with come list me calls, already predisposed to do business with you, just watch this video right here and I'll show you exactly how we do it, and I'll see you there.